Now we have the latest on the coronavirus emergency.
Play a game and it's a game decision. I'm sorry, Austin, I vote to evict you.
The problem is we're not testing children, so in a lot of states, even now in the United States, children don't get tested.
Did you do that?
Yeah. I did it.
Close your eyes and imagine it. It is July 5th of the year 2000. You are sitting on your couch tuning into CBS to watch the first episode of the first season of Big Brother. You have been watching Survivor Borneo since the beginning of June, and the Real World Road Rules has been out for about 2 years now, and you are very excited to see another reality competition show play out. As the episode starts, you wonder to yourself, I wish there was a way I could play Big Brother. Now open your eyes. It's 2021. 20 plus years after the first episode of Big Brother and Survivor, and we are in a global pandemic. Close your eyes again and think about that thought you had 20 years ago. I wish there was a way I could play Big Brother. Well, ever since the year 2000, there has been. Let me introduce you to the concept of online reality game, or ORG for short. As explained by Conor Clark, ORGs first came into fruition almost 20 years ago following the debut of Survivor on CBS in early 2000, the first reality show of its kind. They began with players communicating over email, but as social media boomed, the games moved to outlets such as Skype, Facebook, Tumblr, and anything else that allowed communication among competitors. Even in 2021, the idea of orgs have moved to Discord and in some cases Roblox in the form of Eviction Notice and Outlaster. One of the first orgs that can be found is Online Survivor, which can be traced back to September of 2000. But I personally started my journey into orgs on a website called 10Gauge.
My name's Keaton, and I'm 20 years old, and I'm from upstate New York. 10Gauge, I think, is a site that's well over a decade old at this point. Even, I think, 15 years old. A site that looks like it was made in 2006. Still looks like it was made in 2006 this day.
A lot of people start playing orgs by playing a genre of org called group games that is very popular on 10Gauge.
For somebody that plays group games a lot, it's definitely a completely different dynamic. Group games are very... you don't have to talk all the time to people on calls. You don't have to be present. And in orgs, you have to be there all the time.
Orgs can span from a couple of hours, often called a mini, to about 2 months, which is the average time for a long-term org, and anything in between.
I think the fast-pacedness of it really makes me a little bit anxious, a lot anxious. So I think the difference between that and the long-term orgs, is that there's more time in between, so you're not rushed to make rash decisions in such a short amount of time. And I was nervous, not nervous, but I was curious to see how I would react, because until that point, last week, I hadn't been nominated or anything, but this week in BB Disney, I'm nominated. So I was curious to see how I would react with that. And the anxiety is just not as bad.
You get the ability to think about your actions and what the consequences might be. People start to get in their own head, and they get a little more wary about how they're going to go about their next move, how they're going to approach someone with a possible vote out or a deal or whatever it may be.
Most org formats are known, like Big Brother and Survivor, but there are original formats that are around the org community. Some more well-known formats are Sequester and the Penthouse, but some lesser-known ones are The Wish and Room Limit.
Survivor, I will say it's a lot easier, I think, on me because the format is already established. I don't have to worry about the contestants coming to me and asking me questions about things other than maybe the twist for the scene. I'll usually try and come up with an original twist, but I might use something from the show Survivors from time to time. Whereas when I host an original format, every round I get the question, so how does this round work?
In my personal opinion, the org community is very fluent, with older people and younger people, people from all over the world, great female, male, and non-binary players, people on different platforms like Discord, Facebook, and Skype, and everything in between.
So, yeah, you know this. Like, whenever I play a game, I'm usually the oldest player in the game. What I think that it does for me is, and this goes, I would say this plays over to live games as well. Because I'm usually the oldest player playing these games, um, people tend to start from a position of like discounting me or like making assumptions about me that may not be true.
Yes, I'm 15, but a lot of the times it feels like I'm not being treated like I'm 15. It feels like I'm being treated by an adult. However, some people can't seem to get it out of their heads that I'm 15.
And definitely like, there's a lot of cultural differences that I've noticed between like Americans and like British people, in that like Americans are really loud. And so like people talk a lot in America, where I'm a lot more reserved, a lot more quiet, a lot more like the English gentleman politeness comes out.
The language barrier was never a problem for me, honestly. It actually helped me to develop my English, because I've been learning English since I'm 3, and just like actually having conversations with people and discussing and stuff like that also helped. So I don't really think being from Mexico has been like a problem for me, or if I had any boundaries because of it. It's just I'm from a different country. Just it makes me unique. That's basically it. It's not really a problem for me.
I feel like different platforms kind of denote age in a way. Like typically I see younger people playing Instagram because it's a lot easier for young people to access and make these games as fast as possible. Whereas more advanced sites like Discord, that's very technical.
In March and April, the world was hit with the COVID-19 pandemic. For a lot of people, this was a devastating thing to happen. No longer was hanging out with friends and visiting family and going to work normal. It was mainly a taboo topic. Everyone was stuck inside and had nowhere to go. But for the org community, it flourished. Almost every person I interviewed said that the pandemic made the community blossom and more people joined because of it. It made it more fun, and more communities and games were able to form because of it.
It's also brought a lot of new people into the community, because when all you have in quarantine is like your computer and your phone, you're more likely to find weird subsets of the internet community like this that do weird shit like play games. So I think it's really cool to watch how the org community has like grown and developed over time, and especially over quarantine, because it's isolated people and this has given people such an outlet and such a way to communicate during such a like hard time for people socially and just in general. Like this pandemic sucks.
When the pandemic hit, we did get a lot of new people. I know Rachel is someone that joined during the pandemic. There's multiple other people that joined and started playing during the pandemic. Zach started during the pandemic. Like there were all these new people, and I think a lot of those new people have become some of like the big orgers on this side of the community, because the community does have like different sides, and it's definitely been interesting.
Now it begs the question. We are in 2021. Multiple vaccines have come out that have benefited the stoppage of the spread of COVID-19. Where does the community go from here? Well, what I've gathered, people have mixed predictions on how people see the community moving forward.
I think people will stay in the community. I know most people that are in this community love it, and they would not trade it for a lot of things. But I do think that just like how many games people are playing and just the rate of how fast seasons go after each other in certain games might slow a little bit.
I think that's really the main issue here, that these are very niche things. That's probably it. The odds though, I don't think so well, but
whether the pandemic ending causes the community to flourish or sink, either way, the org community has been a great way to escape during this time of hardship and peril, especially during a pandemic.